morning, I'm Marianne McDonough, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to Erwin Insights. Our session today, DM02, is Women in Data, and this one is very near and dear to my heart. My co-moderator, Wendy Petty, and I had this epiphany last year sometime that a large percentage of our enterprise customer projects, these major multi-million-dollar projects, were being run by women. And we started to pay attention to it and then saw it more and more. And so today we wanted to really explore this trend and understand what it is about the data intelligence space that attracted all these incredible women that we have here today and learn more about their journeys and their stories. So I would like to take a moment to welcome my co-moderator, Wendy Petty, Erwin's Chief Sales Officer and my good friend and partner in crime, my work wife, I guess you could say. Wendy and I worked together very early in our careers when we were both young mothers. We were pregnant with our second children together, climbing the ladder in enterprise software. And so we're no strangers to women in a high-tech environment and lots of pressure and our ability to execute. So hi, Wendy, you want to have a couple of words of commentary before we get started?
Absolutely, Marianne. First, thank you, Marianne, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for joining us here today. It really is an interesting phenomenon that is going on in the data space for women, and it's really intriguing. I've been in this business my entire career and have felt like a lone ranger. And over the last, 6 to 9 months, really understanding our customers and realizing that most of our customers and the people that I work with are women in the data space. So we're really excited to understand your journey. I think it's a perfect time for all of us. I mean, the timing couldn't be better. And really looking forward to the session and hearing about everybody's experience and being able to share it with the rest of the Erwin community. So thank you for being here. And Marianne, thank you.
It's really my pleasure to welcome all of our fantastic panelists here that you see before you. So we've got Romina from Eon, Cindy and Leanne from Zovio. We've got Shireen and Joanne from CMS, and then we've got Libby from Optum. And we're going to get an opportunity in the next couple of minutes to learn a little bit more about who they are and what they do and what they've been achieving with Erwin Data Intelligence and a lot about their day-to-day life. One of the things I think that's interesting, Wendy, that I forgot to mention up front was this preponderance of women in the data intelligence space is actually really different than the kinds of numbers that we see with women in STEM. Right. In fact, over the last several years, the numbers of women in STEM have been declining to an average of 24%, and then even lower percentages in positions of management. So again, I think it's really interesting for us to spend some time kind of busting that myth and understanding what is so phenomenal about the data intelligence space that it's this really great opportunity for women to thrive. So over to you for the first question.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting when Marianne and I deciding to put the session together. We had no problem in trying to find women in our customer base to invite to the panel. So that's the exciting part about this. So for the audience and for the folks that are listening, this is going to be a very open conversation. We wanted to make it as friendly as possible for those that are listening, but get ready because this is going to be really exciting. So I'm going to open up the discussion and just ask the panel in general if you could give us a little bit of background of your experience and what your role and responsibility is in your current company and what your involvement was with Erwin's Data Intelligence Suite, and just give us a little bit of feedback about your experience, and that would be great. So Romina, since you've come all the way from Germany, I'm sure the flight wasn't as bad as it normally is. You can just walk to your desk. Why don't we start off with you and welcome.
So thank you very much, Wendy. And first of all, also thank you for allowing me to be part of this panel. I'm extremely excited to listen to all the other women here and to learn and explore new ideas and new impressions. And I'm very happy to participate. Now to my person. So my name, as you know, is Romina Medici. I am working for E.ON, which is the largest energy provider in Europe. And in this company, I am in the digital department responsible for data management and data governance. And in logical consequence, I'm also responsible for the implementation of Erwin and also for the partnership with Erwin. So yeah, maybe just about my role. I'm leading a team which is spread all over Germany and Romania. We are spread over 12 countries across Europe. So we are quite international, quite big. We have like 73,000 employees. So there's a bit of work to do in this space, especially because we started basically from zero when I got the role. So it's a journey to run and I love it. Now a little bit about my experience with Erwin. So we started the journey already now more than 2 years ago when we had the first conversations and we were starting to explore the market for finding the right technology for data governance, metadata management in the first lens. We did take time, about 9 months, until we actually found the right partner, which is Erwin, as you can see, as I'm sitting here. And since then, we started to basically do the implementation of the DIS first, so the Data Intelligence Suite, where we so far have been extremely successful, if I'm allowed to say this in a way, compared to what we have been expecting. We have onboarded about 6 countries, 15 legal entities. We have more than 200 people actively working in the platform already. And this only in the last 1 year and 4 months roundabout since we started. So besides this, we are the whole platform is strategically placed in E.ON. That means that there's no way around it. It's a common decision that we will use Erwin and that this is our cornerstone for creating transparency about data and also clarifying the ownership for data. So we are really happy about this. And as we have been quite good with DIS, we are now starting to roll out the data model as well and starting to go into this field. Basically entering now and placing it one of the biggest and most important programs that we do at the moment in E.ON. So my experience as a summary is extremely positive, and I'm very happy with not only the product itself, but also the partnership and the support that we get from your side.
That's great, Romina. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so, as you can imagine, it's a huge undertaking to be able to, implement a global data governance solution. So again, a little bit about, Romina and her role in data is huge. Anyone else like to share with us your role and responsibility and your experience?
Hi, sure. This is Cindy. I'll go ahead and go.
Hey, Cindy, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
So, yeah, I have about 25 years of data management experience, and I have a background in data governance, about 8 years, but played different roles in GUI development and to be honest, I always found data a lot more exciting, more challenging than doing like the cookie cutter development GUI front end stuff. So I really fell in love with data many, many years ago. And so more recently, I'm working with Leanne, and Leanne had a vision at Zovia, which is a online ed tech company. And as you know, right now, a lot of the education is moving towards online. So yeah, we have quite a bit of demand for high quality data, and a lot of folks are really depending on us getting this tool up and running and making sure that we start really sharing our metadata in general. So anyway, so as far as the role with Erwin, we've signed the deal probably about, I think it was January last year, and we collaborated with our leadership team and said, what is the most important part of data that you'd like to see first? And everybody said, we really need to focus on our business term and build that out, make sure everybody's talking the same language. And then we talked about that we need to work on data mapping and data quality and lineage. We spent really the last year or so partnering quite a bit with the Erwin development team, and I feel like they're kind of an extension of our developers, especially when we're working with the data mapping and lineage part. So anyway, we've rolled the tool out and did a couple of releases, and we've actually migrated from Jira and Confluence, and folks are giving us really good feedback saying that this tool is a lot more user-friendly and they like the Google-like technology and the searching capabilities. And the big nut that we've been working on and that we're real excited about is really the, like say, the mapping piece and the lineage, and people are pretty much waiting for that, because right now we spend hour upon hour of developer time looking through and manually trying to find lineage and then interviewing folks. So we're actually in the next week or so, we should have a lot of our mappings done, and a lot of people would like to, they have projects waiting. The other thing we're working on is a GDPR, CCPA, sensitive data tagging and things like that. So that's very important to the organization as well.
Exciting stuff.
So that's
So,
great. Thank
Leanne,
you.
you wanna jump
Yeah.
in and sort of tell us
Tell-
what you do too, and
And your
sort of
vision.
your vision, because Cindy says you had a really good one, so share that with us if you would.
Yeah, so I was going to follow up with Cindy. Great job, by the way, Cindy. And Romina, oh my gosh, amazing. Countries, we're not doing countries, but I feel like and our company is on the verge of transitioning. So I'll get to that in a second. But a little bit about me is I came from a military family, so we moved around a lot. I had a lot of different opportunities. I've worked at, for local government. I've worked for newspaper industry. I've worked for hospitals, healthcare. I've done education, just, a vast variety of, I was an auditor, I did taxes. So I just was all over the place. I graduated, my first 12 years in my professional career, I was actually in accounting and finance. So did a lot of analysis there. So I was really good with the numbers. I was an Excel guru. And I decided at one point, whenever we made a move, I was a financial analyst, and my boss at that time asked me if I knew how to write SQL. And I'm like, I don't know what SQL is. So that's great. And he said, well, you'll be doing it all day, every day. And I'm like, okay, well, he's not going to hire me. He did. He hired me. I don't know what his problem was, but he hired me. He needed someone who knew finance, and he felt like he could teach me technically. So that was my gateway into where I am today. He's still my mentor to this day. I talk about him all the time, keep up with him. But he's the one who really opened my eyes to data and gave me the shot. And I fell in love with it. And I'm like, I left accounting behind and I didn't look back. I've now been at Zovio. We used to be called Bridgepoint Education. We recently rebranded last April, and we have become Zovio. We currently own Ashford University, but they recently, if you guys have read about it in the news, they recently got bought by University of Arizona. So now we're partnering with University of Arizona, and Zovio will be an education technology organization that will serve like partners and help them bring their business online, and really service a need that they have in the education space. Because we have many years, we go back to 2005, of being able to service online institutions, and in 2005 that was kind of a newer thing. It was just picking up, and it just exploded over the years.
Yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah, and so I actually was an Ashford employee, and I came over there to work with data, and I was super excited, spent my days writing SQL. I was in heaven, loved it. And I think my passion just kind of shined through what I was doing, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. So it was a really great opportunity for me to kind of move up the ladder in technology and in data. And now I'm running the department of data analysts, and I have an amazing team. And Cindy is a new addition that I have added to the team, I think 2 years ago at this point, because of the vision that she was talking about. Over the years, whenever we were Bridgepoint, we had made many attempts to put data governance in place. But we said, okay, Mick, I know you have a day job, but let's just give you data governance too. I know you never did anything with it, but let's see what you can do. We did like that 2 or 3 times. That doesn't work. That's not data governance. And he already had a day job. We weren't able to do it justice. So over the years, I was able to gain that trust, I think, with the executive leadership team and other leaders in the organization, and express really the importance of what data governance is and what it can do and why we need it. So then I was able to bring Cindy on board in that first year. Like she said, we just built the straw man out, if you will, kind of in Confluence, so everyone could see, get something like an immediate ROI out of what we were accomplishing. And then a little over a year ago, we were able to start working with Erwin to take us to the next step and get us way more sophisticated, because now we want lineage, we want quality. So we're kind of crawling. We're not, at the baby steps anymore. We're kind of crawling, but we're definitely not running. But I think we're well on our way to running, and we bought so many connectors. We got SSS, SSRS, we got Tableau, Power BI. We have so many connectors, and everything is starting to come together, like Cindy said, with the quality and the mapping. And we have people sitting on the edge of their seats just anxious to see that happen, because we spend hours upon hours trying to understand where all of our data is. And especially with CCPA and GDPR coming, we need to know, where do we have social security numbers? Where do we have, student addresses and things like that, that we can easily and quickly identify without spending days to identify where those are at, and then potentially missing because of human error. But Erwin tool has given us a lot of sophistication, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, we're very new with everything, but I'm looking forward to all the opportunities with Erwin.
Thank you, Leanne. And it's interesting, some of the comments that you made, because all of the the women on the panel here are in a similar journey as far as even Erwin is concerned. Romina might be a little bit, maybe a little bit further in advance, but in timing wise, everyone's kind of in the same place. So, and also the verticals are really interesting. So we've also noticed, just to share, in the online education space, all of a sudden, customers are coming to us, and the use case is the same for, all the online learning companies. So I'll have to introduce you to some of the other women in some of the other online learning companies that are in this space. Yeah, it's really interesting. So let's segue over to a different vertical, and we actually have two verticals in kind of a similar space, but not really. So Libby, why don't you share with us a little bit about yourself, and I have to also say thank you to you, because I know you've been a tremendous, I'm not even sure what the word is, but you have been fabulous in your effort to figure out how to work through your organization and make things happen in a way like all the other women on the panel have. It's amazing. So go ahead.
Thanks. First of all, I'm just really honored to be here and to be with all of you as well. I love hearing your stories, and yes, Remy, I can't even think of states and all over countries, and as to just a small area of Optum. But I started with Optum about 3 years ago. I'm in a division called Payment Integrity, and of course, Optum brings in other insurers' claims and looks at their data. Our chief architect over our area decided that he wanted a data governance tool, but we were really looking for a way to shorten the length of time for our client implementations. And so if I'm allowed to say our competition on here, or if not, I've worked on just about every one of the other. Go for it. I've worked on IBM and Calibra and Informatica and SAS, and built, like, I think this is going to be my 6th business glossary. So they brought me in because I'd done this before, and I was really excited. And I had used the Erwin data modeler, but I was not aware that Erwin even had, all the new things they were doing. And so we vetted out several tools, and this, you guys will like this. I started out with 5 guys on this committee with me who fell away, and it ended up being me, and which was okay. And so, I looked at some of the other tools, but then when I, looked at Erwin, I was like, wow, because it's a good tool. It's easy to get around in, and I knew I was going to be dealing with people who had been doing things the way they were doing them for a long time, and I just was really impressed, and so that's what we brought it on for. And I started this journey like almost a year and a half ago, and we got our first licenses, and I started our implementation the latter part of November of last year. And so right now we have everybody on using it, all of our other analysts for our pre and post pay side of the business, and we bought the user portal, and I'm working on that now, and I'm trying to build out the rest of the glossary. So it's been a good journey. I started out in healthcare managing physician practices, and like, gee, management's not what it's cracked up to be sometimes. But there was all this data, you know, in your contracts, and are you getting reimbursed, you know, for what you're supposed to be? And it was just all this data, but it was never in one place, and there was never any control over it, or how are you going to bring this together? So that's kind of how I moved over to IT, because I was like, I want to know on all the physicians that we're employing, you know, because they all go to multiple hospitals and multiple locations, and they're all multi-specialties, and how am I going to keep track of what they're actually doing and what we're actually paying them? So I was like, gee, I like working with the data a whole lot better than I do dealing with these doctors on a day-to-day basis. So, and data was fun, and it didn't talk back to you. So, but you felt like you got results, and you could show something, and then you could take it back to the, you know, the business or the practice and say, this is what we can do, or we're not getting reimbursed for what we should be. So that was how I moved over to IT. And then I was working for a hospital company that bought one of the big practices that I was managing. And they asked me if I would, they had bought a hospital system that had gotten in trouble with the government for billing for patients in Canada. And so we had to take on their ethics program with the government when we bought them. So that was my first thing into governance. And after that, I was just hooked. So,
Yeah.
I would travel all over the country and teach ethics and then compliance, and do internal or auditing for us as far as corporate compliance and governance was concerned. But when I got to Optum, I went from like driving a Rolls Royce at the company where I was in governance to going back to Excel spreadsheets. And I was like, oh, no. And like you say, lineage, if people have never seen it, they don't know how important it is. And so I have to tell you a kind of a joke. Joe Borelli is our sales rep, who is just wonderful. And I have to, I would call him every time I would get to something and I'd get it created. And I was, this is just great. And he would laugh at me and say, I know. So I said, okay, I'll stop calling you and telling you how great it is, because you already know. But it really is. It's a wonderful tool. And it's been slow for us. And because Optum's a part of United Health and we're so big, just teaching people about governance and making them understand and being able to identify sensitive data, it's a process. But we're getting there. We're having a few people kick and scream, but we're getting there.
So what's interesting about that, Libby, is we'll have to have you and Romina have a sidebar later, because one of the big things that Romina did was she did these, what she called road shows, where she was traveling from place to place. And that was how she got those countries on board, where she would go and she would spend time in front of them and she would educate them. So she's got a little like pull-up banner and handouts and,
I will definitely
and a curriculum to help to bring these other business units on. Am I right, Romina? Yeah, right. And
yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah. That evangelism that she did was absolutely critical to them being able to get adoption across the business, which is something we'll come back to in a minute. So I think everybody see a lot of heads nodding, right? That need for adoption.
You're all what you're gonna find out after this session, you're all gonna be in touch with each other and understand, like, you know, everyone's best practices and what works and what doesn't work. So I want to segue now to the I'm going to call it the CMS team, but to Joanne and Shireen, because here's the other interesting thing that I just have to bring up is when Marianne and I were looking for the panelists, both on the Zovio side, you know, having this partnership between Cindy and Leanne, having you both here. And then when, you know, we asked Shireen was like, absolutely, but I would like Joanne also. And so Marianne and I were like, wow, this is really interesting because, you know, women partner. And now I'm sitting here watching this and listening to us, and Marianne and I are the same way. So it's really, you know, it's really interesting. So Joanne, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and again, thank you. And I, you know, I really, from the bottom of my heart, I keep saying thank you because I know all the work and effort that both of you have put into this, and you're at this this point right now. It's just a year, and it's been phenomenal. And the two of you have been incredible in driving through the government and working with our teams and providing the feedback and, helping us just like, everyone else take our solution to a whole other level. So go ahead.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you, Shireen, for being my partner in crime and always having my back here. We are, and she knows. So Cindy, I can definitely relate. This isn't really my bag either, and this is my first time. And I think you did a fabulous job. Shireen is, we are a bonded pair, like Leanne and Cynthia, and I think you need to, just being women in IT and even in data, I think you need to have that support and have somebody who understands your vision and can help you execute it. And being in the government, and I'm a lifelong civil servant, so I'm not trying to bash my employer, but I think everybody realizes sometimes things can be a little bit more difficult to execute and to get through, and to make your business case and get that funding and get the buy-in in something like data that takes a little bit longer to see the results of, right? At a high level, what our goal is. We want to have data that's fit for program integrity use. It's the right data, it's quality data at the right time to support these business decisions. And with that being said, I'm going to let Shireen get into some of the metrics. One of my favorite things to do is what I call peel back the onion, right? So we came in and I'm like, okay, each line on this spaghetti diagram just says there is a flow. And as we started peeling back the onion, that line turned into many, 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 many flows with lineage and sprawl and duplication and everything all over the place. And so now I like to turn it over to my good friend Shireen to share everything she's been able to do, to help us start moving and actually, as Wendy, really start getting traction and making progress towards our vision.
Thank you, Wendy. First, I'd like to thank Marianne and Wendy for the invitation and also the vision of assembling such a great group of women. My name is Shireen Ogletree. I'm currently the project manager responsible for the data strategy within the Data Systems and Analytics Group within the Center for Program Integrity at CMS, and Joanne's current partner in crime. As Joanne indicated, she gave me a call. I picked up as I always do because I wanted to hear about her latest data adventure she had planned for us. So I knew it was going to be an exciting data opportunity, so I was anxious to hear about it. So one of the first things that we needed to do, as Joanne stated, was to dissect that spaghetti diagram. And by the time we peeled back the onion, we discovered that the onion had many, many, many layers. We identified approximately 1,200 data artifacts, which spanned over 13 application areas. And the data actually resided in over 6 different on-premise and cloud-based database platforms. We quickly realized as we were going through this discovery process and capturing this information that the Excel spreadsheets that we were using was not going to be sustainable in the long run, and that we needed a tool to help maintain the inventory that we were collecting. So that led us to evaluating various data management and data governance tools on the market that would meet our needs, and that resulted in our selection of the Erwin Data Intelligence Tool Suite. We are currently working with our application teams to ingest these artifacts and the associated metadata, and also establishing the data lineage and operationalizing our data governance framework. So that's been our journey thus far. We still have a little ways to go, but I do want to give you a little background on how I ended up in the data world. I actually thought I would pursue a career in the medical field and following the footsteps of my mother, who was a certified nurse practitioner. But I think I first got bit by the data bug very early on. I had a summer job as a teenager working in the public library. I assisted the head librarian with keeping the card catalog organized, and realized how important that card catalog was to our patrons. And then the first professional job I had in IT was actually an assembler level application programmer at a utility company. And fortunately, this is where I encountered one of many of my IT and data mentors. And so I was very fortunate to have someone mentor me early on in my career. After leaving the utility company, I worked in various IT roles, from business analyst to application tester, database administrator, requirements analyst, and eventually I found my way into the data administration, data architecture arena. I think I knew I found my niche in that space when I was a DBA at a telecom company who had just disbanded their data administration team. And I had worked very closely with that team before they were actually disbanded. And the new CIO came into the company as a result of an acquisition and merger. And the first thing that he wanted to see was the data models and architecture diagrams associated with the systems we were maintaining. Little did I know was that I was the only one that retained all that information when they disbanded the data administration team. So I was able to say, "Hey, I got it." And so as a result of that, I was tasked with resurrecting actually the data administration team, and I've sort of been in data ever since and sort of never looked back.
So let me just jump in here, Shireen, and say, because our time is starting to run down, and I want to get to a couple of other questions. Very interesting stuff. And when I listen to all of you, I hear some recurring themes, right? Obviously, each of you takes your work incredibly seriously. There are quite a number of data geeks among you, right? So people who get data, who like data, Romina, who continues to get more degrees in data. I think that's interesting. But when I look at the sort of the character of the stories that you're telling, I was writing down some things: curiosity, fearlessness, people putting you in front of something and saying, "Hey, figure out how to do this," right? Go be the first one. We don't know how, but you figure it out. Necessity. Right? That it had to be done and somebody had to do it, so why not you? Something that I call white space. My definition of white space is you look around and you see this thing that's not being done, right? And you know that it's critical to what you do. You can see that it's critical to what other people need done. And if you're me, you go, I think I could do that. And you end up taking that on as well. So partnerships, as we talked about, like sort of across the board with all of you. So all of these things, I think, seem to have contributed to the successes that you have had individually and as teams. And so when we step back and we look at the space, right? And again, we remember that the numbers of women in STEM seem to be trending down. Right? From 5 years ago to 3 years ago to this year, down by like 11%. But yet here you are, and you are, again, a small slice of the women who we're working with in these enterprise positions. What is it about female leaders in this area? What is it about all these things that I've talked about that I've heard you say, that when you combine them together, make for a place where women can come and have an impact and be successful? And I'm going to ask you guys to try to give me some quick answers so we can get everybody to go around with this. Leanne, I'm going to start with you. What do you think it is?
Okay, I have a perfect quick answer. And by the way, you summarized that like amazingly well, and you picked up on some key words that I actually had written in my notes. So amazing.
That's what marketing people can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, with her. This is great. So I think one thing I can add real quick is that, I think women just have a natural ability though too to nurture and help people grow. So I think in addition to all the qualities that you brought to the table or that you took notes at throughout the conversation here, like we just have that natural ability to lead but it's not just about us and moving us up, it's about bringing people along with us and bringing people along who have the same passion that we have. And helping them grow. And for me, I had an intern on my team too, and that was probably one of the most exciting times in my life is watching him grow. Like he was super excited. It was his first real job, and just being a mentor to people like that, and feeling like I have something to offer to them, like my mentor did to me.
Great answer. How about you, Libby?
I agree. I think too that I think sometimes a lot of women are the younger women, and we have a great university here in Jackson, but they deal more, with they have a anesthetist program and more of the medical arts. But when I have a young girls Bible study that I do from there, and when I talk to them about data, and they're all interested in what I do, they're like, oh, well, I have to go and do all these classes, and I was like, no, and just listening to everybody here. Everybody's self-taught. I mean, I taught myself Access so I could create my first database. And I think, as we mentor them, we have to tell them, you don't have to go spend 4 years. You just got to jump in and dig in and like you said, want to be able to do it. And again, I think women have that. We see things and we want to get them in their place, and we want that organization. So that's what I think.
The other thing, just to add to Marianne, thank you, Libby. The other thing to add to what Marianne was saying, the other things that I've noticed is passion. The passion amongst all of us are tremendous. And then the drive, right? Like to be able to, see what you want and then driving to get, to the point that you want to get to. But the passion is contagious, and it's really makes a big difference.
Well, look at my friend Romina. So Romina is both book taught because, again, she keeps going back and getting more and more degrees. But at the end of the day, it was all about the trial by fire of rolling this thing out, right? Boots on the ground. So what's your feelings to share there, Romina?
So actually, I mean, as I am not that extremely far away from the young leaders usually, because I'm not even 30 yet, I can say, I mean, yes, I studied, and I did a master's in data science, but I never stopped working. What I learned the most in was my job. But what I think was crucial was that I'm not afraid of change, but I'm an ambassador of it. I think that it's very important to change, and that just because, there's all of a sudden digitalization and everything is a bit more, let's say, faster and more transparent than it has been before, it doesn't mean that you need to be scared. So what I have as one of my key things that I think are important is simply that that change is a huge part of data management and data governance, and that you need to manage it. And I think this is also one of the key competencies that women have, is that they are smart enough to get the technical part, which is reasonably easy compared to get the people and to make them feel comfortable along the road. So that's basically, I think, my key thing that I would contribute to this.
That's really great. Cindy, what do you have to share there?
Yeah, and really to dovetail onto that, it's multitasking skills, organizational skills, and the daily skills just to, like you say, roll up your sleeves and jump in and get excited. I get very excited about rolling out the tool. Leanne knows, she's smiling because I see something and I'm like, oh, we've got to get some data quality going and let's get a team together, and the passion. So, and like you say, coaching and mentoring folks, and about it.
Is anybody actively coaching and mentoring an up-and-comer female right now? Joanne, you are. Romina, you are. Okay, so a number of people. And are those formal programs in your business, or are they just things that you took on? You're on mute, Joanne.
Sorry. My dog is right behind me, so I just want to make sure.
Maybe you want to introduce your dog to Libby's dog and to Romina's dog.
Romina's made an entrance too, so sorry.
He loves attention.
Oh, good.
Yes, one of the things that I'm most proud of, and from my long illustrious career, is that I was in an upward mobility position when I came into the government before Romina was even born. So you know, actually it was a woman who was my mentor, and she was fabulous, and so I always wanted to kind of give back in that capacity, but I've just been able to promote an up and coming on my staff young lady, very, very talented, and just get that confidence instilled in her into a PM position in our you know, she's the PM for our business data mart now, so very excited about that. But yeah, through the upward mobility career ladder, formally and also formally through pathways programs, but even informally, you know, I'm all about, I call it the next gen of women in IT, and so I'm eligible to retire. I got to get this data stuff done with Shireen, and then that's the next step. But I want to pass the torch to the younger generation of women. So that's, you know, I think one of our questions was, what is our plans for the future? And I probably jumped ahead and answered it, but that's it. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. So just a couple of final thoughts. Shireen, I always thought it was sort of cheesy when people say, you know, notes to your former self, right? If you at Romina's age, up and coming, there was one thing that you had to tell yourself that would be, you know, really important to integrate into your success over the years, what would that one thing be?
I would say, you know, don't sell yourself short. You know, make sure that, you know, you are confident enough to pursue whatever challenge that comes, you know, in front of you. I think that sometimes as women, we have a lot of doubt about our capabilities. And I think that we have to, you know, instill a certain amount of confidence, whether, you know, that's being provided to us externally, but we have to feel confident that we can get, you know,
really important.
Really, I mean, really. And then, you know, to your other point, you know, in terms of, I think that, you know, one of the reasons that we're seeing a lot of women coming into the field more, and it has to do more with, you know, some of our innate abilities as women, we tend to be more transparent. And transparency is very important, especially now, you know, within this age that we're in. You know, I remember a quote, you know, everybody has an opinion until you see the data, right? You know, everything's in the see the data. So, you know, I think, you know, one of the things that we're hoping to do at CMS is make sure that we're completely transparent with the data sources that we have, you know, where they're coming from, you know, and things like that, so that people can make better decisions, and that we understand the impact of some of the business decisions that we're making.
That's awesome. Libby, what's your last thought there?
Well, myself, like Shireen, I wanted to be a doctor till I went to biology class and cut up my first frog, and that did away with that. So then I decided the business side might be better. But, you know, when you work with patients, and it's all data, you have to remember, and they all tell me I'm corny at work when I say this, but it's true. We get so immune to it, which I think is another reason why governance is really important, is that data belongs to somebody's mother, father, brother, sister, child. And if it's educational data, I went to work for a company right after they'd had a huge breach. And so everything we did was to, you know, prevent that in the future. And we had a client last year whose provider ID was their social security number, and I caught it in a query. Even the client didn't really realize it. And I couldn't believe that I couldn't make people understand how important that was, because that in my career in health had never seen that before. So which to me is why governance is really important, that you've got to know what your data is and where it's traveling to and from and who's using it, because ultimately it belongs to someone, and it's in our protection as we have it.
So, just one other interesting point amongst each of you, because I've had a chance, more with others and, than others, but each of you have done some unique things within your organization that I can see. And you should be, proud of what you've accomplished, because it's pretty incredible. Looking at it from my side, and I'm on the other side of what you guys do. As a female driving a sales organization, everyone is like, nobody does that. But, we do it because it's what we love and we're driven, and you all each have some very similar things, and you've been wildly successful, and we're going to get you all together and keep doing what you're doing. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you very much for your
Can I just
time.
add, Mary Ann? I just want to say one thing that I think that is really important, and I live by this, is just be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that should be okay, because that's when
I tell people that all the time. I love that. I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
All right, so up next at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got Erwin and Snowflake, Modernizing Your Data Infrastructure. And then tomorrow at 10 a.m., a really phenomenal case study. Actually, all of you will be really interested in this one, Modern Data Governance in Action at Ultra Mobile. So thanks so much for joining us.